I mean, the reality is part of being married is just giving up on some of the things you enjoy.
I don't know
Sorry,
about
gang.
that.
You caught us mid convo there. Didn't expect you to pop in like that. Oh boy. Anyway, I'm Justin DeWeese. That's my wife, Ashley DeWeese. Contrary to what I just said, she doesn't actually rob that much joy from my life.
Clearly, I'm
Right.
jolly.
She's clearly the Jolly Crew. If you're not watching at home, she's wearing a shirt that says Jolly Crew. But this is the Off the Cuff podcast. What up, y'all?
Dang, that was a
Hey, man,
banger. That's what the
I'm
kids
fired
say.
up. Fired up.
I'm glad you're fired up. Um, I gotta get my brain moving. I mean,
We
it's
don't
already
have all day,
moving.
so maybe just make something up.
Wow. Wow.
I'm just
Um,
saying.
so I mentioned last week, which by the way, let me tell a little story. So last week on our podcast, if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. It was a really great episode, by the way, and I'm not just saying that because it was ours.
They're all great.
I feel like it was a very valuable episode on a topic that we haven't really talked about a lot about. Um, but anyways, in that episode, my bearded beau was like, DM us this word if you want to hear me tell this story that I'm not telling on this episode. And so yesterday, because we both work from home, so we have lots of time to converse. And he was like, hey, like our friend, one of my clients and one of our longtime friends, she messaged me yesterday the word experience. And I was like, huh? And he was like, yeah, me too. So I replied back with double question marks as to like, am I supposed to know what this means? And she was like, I just listened to the podcast episode and I'm DMing you the word experience. And he was like, oh, yeah, I did say that. So, in the spirit of being raw and real, sometimes we tell you to do things that we forget we tell you to do,
Listen, the
but we're glad
reality
that you do
is,
them anyway.
right, of course, of course. I got a lot of shit going on, okay? If I tell you to do something and you wait damn near a week to do it, I mean, maybe I
Okay.
still got it, maybe I don't.
It's like when you tell your kids to do something sometime and then they finally follow through and do it and you don't remember telling them to do it. And you're like,
Right.
oh, yeah. 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 I told you to do that.
Well, and our son is crafty, so he'll be like, "No, I did that of my own free will. I wanted to
Right.
be nice and do something for you guys."
Right.
And that's when I
So,
normally know he's lying.
anyways, last, last episode, I said that we were gonna maybe have some recurring segments from time to time, and we're gonna do one of those today, and it's called Stupid Shit You Heard This Week. Um, because I don't know about you, but like I hear a lot of stupid shit.
Oh, I mean, ultimately, the world is full of stupid shit. And quite
This is true.
honestly, we'd all be better served if we turned some of it off because good
That
Lord.
is also fact. So you're gonna kick this segment off this week.
Yeah, well, so this is not like a specific, like, so and so said. But the stupid
Here we
shit I
go.
heard that I've been reflecting on is everybody is fired up one way or the other about the changes that President Trump is trying to get going in the country, right? And
By the way, this is not a political
this is
podcast.
not a political, so just
I don't
sit
even know what
tight,
he's about to say, but I'm
okay?
like,
Don't,
holy shit, are you really?
yeah, I am really. Because politics aside, okay, the detractors are going, oh my gosh, the stocks are down and this is bad happening and this is bad happening and this is bad happening. And here's why that's stupid shit. We convince ourselves that, oh, we want so and so to be better. I want my marriage to be better. And then we feed ourselves this dumb shit line of, and it's just going to be all up. There's not going to be any downside or any, there's no gonna not going to be any pain, right? And the reality is when you make changes, and if you make changes to something as big as the United States of America, there's going to be a little bit of change. It's not going to be smooth. So to me, that's the dumbest shit I've been hearing this week that people expect. And this goes for everything really, but in this particular realm, regardless of your politics, regardless of what side you're on, if your guy's trying to make some changes, like it's that old saying, you can't make omelets without breaking a couple eggs.
Well, I'll just circle this. I'll put a nice little bow on this in case someone got riled up about what you just shared. Because and then we'll move on from this segment. But here's the point I want to make is anytime changes are being made, it's going to make an impact on everybody, whether you are for the changes, not for the changes. And so, you know, what is not being said here is that changes that are made in politics do not have impact on
That
you,
too.
the listener, right? So, of course, they're going to have impact. And depending on how much impact it has on you and how passionate you are about it, will hopefully influence the actions that you take to fight for that, right? But what I want to just bring to light is I think often what can happen is we spend too much time, we spend too much time simply talking about stuff we don't like or stuff that we believe someone else is doing that is going to negatively impact us. And my challenge for everyone, us and our listeners, is one, sit with yourself and ask yourself the question of one, is this actually going to have the impact that I'm telling myself it's going to have? And two, what can I do right now in my life that will actually make my life better? And
Right.
the reason I say that is because I just see too many people. I'm not saying that you should not get involved in politics. I'm not saying that you shouldn't care what's happening with the leadership of your country or the leadership in other countries. I just find sometimes that people can allow themselves to get so caught up in what is or isn't happening in government that in so many ways, like life is still going on as it was or fairly close to it. And or even if it wasn't, like even if changes were directly impacting your day-to-day life, like we still, just kind of like mulling over it and staying in our head about it and complaining about it, venting our frustrations, etc. Like none of that actually moves the needle in your life. So all I would say is no matter how you might feel about the leadership of the US or your own country, just ask yourself, what can I do to take control and step into power in my own life today?
Right.
Because I
Well,
think
and
too often we blame what's happening in our life on the governmental leadership. And while that may or may not be true, I just still at this juncture believe that the most impact on what's happening in our life happens by the actions that I take as an individual in
right.
my life.
Well, a couple thoughts there. Number one, it's way easier for us to sit on our blessed assurance and
Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Sorry. Not sorry. I'm not sorry. I take that back. Anyways, keep
but it's
going.
way easier for us to sit there and bitch about things we don't like versus taking action towards things we do like. That's number one.
Well, it's
Number
not
two,
always bitching. Like sometimes it's legitimate. Like
well,
we're allowed to feel however we need to feel and whatever about the thing. Is all I'm
sure,
saying. We're allowed to
sure,
feel that way, but at the same time, action.
right. The other thing, and this is a framework that I talk our daughter through, because she's 13 and she's getting to that age where, like the rest of us, when it's time to lay down in bed at night, that's when your brain goes, "Hey, remember that dumb thing you did earlier? Let's think about that for a little bit." Um, and other worries
Meaning
and
that's what our brain
right.
says. Like the other
And
person, you're not saying that to
yeah,
her.
yeah, no, I don't say that. Her inner voice
Yeah,
worries about things, recalls things that don't matter.
right. We
And what
all
I
do.
tell her, what I tell her is, anytime those sort of things pop up, you need to ask yourself two questions. Number one, is it real? Right? Because a lot of times we'll be like, I felt like so and so was mad at me, and it's like, well, is that real? You don't know that that's the case. So,
Right. Or is that like is that the actual fact? Is
right.
that factual?
Is it real? And then number two, is it relevant? And specifically to her in that situation, it's, is it relevant to your life right now?
Yeah.
Right? Like one night she was like, I've got a I've got a social studies test at the end of the week, and I don't, and I'm worried about it, and da da da. And I'm like, honey, that's 3 days away. We've got time to study. It's not relevant to your life right now, so you don't need to be worrying about it right this second. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like we can make a plan to. It's not that it's not relevant overall, but it's not relevant in the moment,
Sure.
and you get yourself spun up over it. So, is it real? Is it relevant?
And if it is relevant, what can I do about it what
Right,
can
right.
I do about it right now? Because if
What's within
there's
your
if
control?
right, because if there's nothing that you can do about it, then there's no point in like harboring it inside of yourself because you're only creating more like
Right.
friction
Well,
and stress and strife, right?
and then I would argue, if you can't do anything about it, it's not relevant, right? Because if it's completely outside of your control,
But it is relevant if it's impacting me. Like if it's going back to the government could make a policy or change
true.
that I don't have control over, but it
Yep.
is directly impacting me. So it is relevant to me.
Sure.
We can agree to disagree, but
We
if
will.
something's impacting me, it's relevant to my life. Whether or
Okay.
not I can do anything about it, that is neither here nor there.
Okay.
Now, I can certainly bless and release because, hey, this is impacting me, but I literally can't change that thing. So I've got to find the focus on what in my life can I change to work within whatever's happening. So, anyways, really, it's just all about make sure you are spending your mental energy and action taking on things that are within your control and not
Gotcha.
letting things out of your control eat it all up.
Well, we had a nifty little 10-minute conversation out of the stupid shit I heard. So, what's the stupid shit you heard this
Oh,
week?
I just think we're gonna stop at that for today. Like I was
Oh,
like you were gonna share the stupid shit.
I missed that note in the production meeting.
Okay. Anyways, um, no, so I wanted to talk about what we're going to be next week is spring break for us. Well, actually not even next week. Like our kids have a half day
They have half day tomorrow, no day on
tomorrow.
Friday. They were supposed to have no day on the 24th, so a whole another day of added on to spring break, but
Oh,
they are
that's right. But we are
but they
going
are
back.
going to school now because of the extended Christmas break they got from the snow. So bless up for that.
Thank the Lord. Again, I will say it. I'm not sure how we ever got through that period of time in our life where we had to stay in our homes for multiple months on end.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. I fully
It's
expect a sainthood when I get up to heaven for that. So
but spring break is coming. And we want to talk a little bit about spring break and what we're going to be doing on spring break on a couple of different levels. One is, I don't know about you, but when I was in school, I always I looked forward to spring break. Um, and mostly because I just looked forward to being off school.
well, yeah, and can I, a little quick tangent here? I did too. Like spring break was like, holy smokes, this is going to be amazing because the weather's turning nice. You get a whole week off of school.
I think I know what you're going to say. But...
I'm not sure children today have that same level of appreciation
Well, no, because they're
because
out of school all the
every
time.
time I turn around, they're
Right.
out of school. It's like, what are
Right.
we doing here?
This is true.
You know what? We need Now we're gonna have fall break. You can have a whole damn week for Thanksgiving. I got a half day on Wednesday
You can
and
have 3 weeks at
Thanksgiving the next
Christmas.
day. What? What? You get 6.5 weeks for Christmas. What is going
Right.
on? So I
Man,
don't.
are they going to be disappointed when they get like their first jobs?
Right, right. What do you mean? I only get 2 weeks a year off?
Right.
I'm used to like 48 out of the 52 weeks being off. What? Yeah.
Right.
So anyway,
Yeah, no,
mini rant over.
I look forward to spring break. And you know what's interesting is I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but as I said that, I I only remember one specific spring break trip with my family. And I don't know if that's because like I might have to ask my mom. She probably doesn't know either. I should yell at her.
You were probably blackout drunk all the time.
When I was in no, I did not have a drink of alcohol until my senior prom, FYI.
Hmm.
Truth.
Good for you.
Thank you. Um, no, I don't know if it's because we didn't actually take trips over spring break when I was growing up. I honestly don't remember. I only remember one trip, and it was a trip that I went solo when I think I was 14, out to see our friends who were living in Arizona at the time. And my childhood friend was, we're similar. She's a year older than me. And I flew out there by myself, obviously with my parents' permission, but I flew out there by myself to spend spring break with them and then came home. But like other than that, I actually don't remember specific spring break trips. So for me, it was mostly about just that time off from
Right.
school. Did you guys go on trips on spring break?
Uh, Not typically that I recall. I'm with you. I only really remember one, and that was the first time we went to Silver Creek, Colorado to ski. First time skiing ever. Um,
Well,
but I
I
remember
think
that.
in the past, I mean, I think it's still the case for many families, but I think in the past, just because school's off for a week, like it doesn't mean that parents didn't have to still go to their
Right.
job or whatever.
I think a lot of people save it up and use their time to
For
take summer
summer.
vacations because then it's not quite so rushed, right? Because
True. I think
you
it's
only got
become
the
more
one week.
popular. I think it's become more popular now to like actually go and travel places. And we've spoken on here before about the importance of experiences as a family. We value that. And anyways, we are not going to be traveling for spring break. Just after some discussions with ourselves and some chats with our kids, it was kind of determined that we'd rather wait for summer to do something a little bit bigger. And really, they just wanted like some downtime
Right.
um, from the typical activities. But that being said, we're going to do something that we really haven't previously done in this way. And so I want to talk about it a bit today. And that is take intentional time away from, off of each of our works, jobs, business, however you want to say it. Um, which depending on how much you know about us, if you're listening, you might be like, okay, that's not actually abnormal. But we typically in over spring break, we don't necessarily take intentional days off because
Right.
Justin works from home. I obviously work from home. He works for a company at home. I have my own business at home. And so it's just a little bit easier for us to flex our work hours when the kids are around. The other thing in regard to spring break that, at least for our family, haven't necessarily treated it as, this like big to do, which is a benefit of you working from home and me having my own business, is that we have the flexibility throughout the year to spend quite a bit of time with
Right.
our kids.
Right.
And so I think the allure of breaks during the school year and summer for that matter, for parents typically, and certainly was us for a certain time in our life, was that you utilized these longer breaks to spend
Right.
more quality time with your family, having experiences, et cetera. And just with our career paths and choices, we've afforded ourselves the ability to have more of that throughout the year. And so it's not quite as imperative that we make the most of this break. However, um, I've been doing a lot of pausing and reflecting and, asking myself, like, what lights me up? What makes me happy? What do I want? And I think last week we alluded to and talked just a bit about that need for quiet time. I don't know if you want to kind of just briefly recap the idea of like what you were saying last episode about just that need to have some quiet and why.
Yeah, well, so the easiest and quickest way to talk about it is imagine you go to the grocery store and you come back and you know you're a hard ass. You're carrying all the groceries in at one time, so you got arms are full. Yeah, I mean, look at woo, put them
I carry
away.
all the bags, all the
Brought
bags.
brought the gun show to the podcast today. But anyway, so you're carrying all this in, right? And you walk in, and your kid walks up and goes, "Hey, can you open this for me?" You can't take it on because you're loaded
Yeah.
up, you're full, right? And so it's the same thing mentally, right? When we don't give ourselves quiet and space to think and process through things, you're trying to open a jar with your hands full of groceries, and it's not going to work well.
Yeah, and to go with that, I think it's also true of your experience with the people that you love, right? That if you're also carrying all of those bags and at the
Okay,
same
quit
time
flexing. We get it.
and at the same time your significant other, one of your children, they're trying to tell you a story or something that
Right,
they're excited about or whatever. Like, it doesn't mean that you're not listening to them, that you're not hearing them, but are you really able to like take it in as
right,
much as you would like to? Because you're also splitting your mental energy and physical energy with the bags that you're carrying in.
right.
Um, that's how we do things here, folks. We make analogies before we actually tell you what we're literally talking about.
Well,
So,
listen, we mentally Miyagi you to the point we're
yes.
getting to, okay? You think you're painting a fish or a fence? Nope. You're learning karate.
Right. No, so I messaged you yesterday and said, "Hey, do you have time to go walk around the block a couple laps?" Which, can I just interrupt this message to say I am so thankful for the multiple days of sunshine and warmth that we have begun to experience, and that it looks or seems to be like we will be experiencing a lot more of
Yep,
in the
it's pretty all
upcoming
right.
weeks and days. And for a lot of reasons, everybody needs vitamin D. Everybody feels better.
Yeah, you need the vitamin D.
Everybody feels better when the sun is shining and you can like get outside and move. And so I'm just thankful that we are back to that time of the year. And for our family, walking around the block has become like a significant like activity, both for us as a
Right.
couple, for us as a family. It's just a really simple way to connect over silly things and over important things. So yesterday I was like, "Do you have a couple minutes?" And so he was like, "Yeah." So we started walking around the block. And I was like, I would like to propose something to you, and I would like to do that. I'm like 90% sure that this is what I want to do. And I want to encourage you to consider doing the same. Did I just freeze up? It looked like I just freezed up on my screen.
No.
No. Okay. Uh, and that is, I said, I want to take several days over spring break completely off of work and
Completely off.
completely off. Um, and for me, uh, you know, a lot of my work involves social media usage, whether that's to be sharing on social media or whether that's using social media to connect with my clients or potential clients. Um, and then also just, my behind the scenes day-to-day work with the clients that I currently have in those communities and growing my business, et cetera. And, I have been in the field of working for myself and being a transformation coach for 10 years now. And in that 10 years, I am not happy to admit, but it is the way that it is. In that 10 years, I have never fully taken multiple days off, period.
Correct.
Like when I was teaching high school, I had spring break, and most of spring break, I did not do teaching work. I did some at some point, but like I had multiple days where I didn't think about teaching, do
Right.
anything with teaching, like none of the things.
Right.
And, entrepreneurial life is a little bit different. And it's definitely, there are perks to just being able to work whenever you want, right? Set your own hours and that sort of thing. But one of the things that, entrepreneurs can sometimes be challenged with is setting boundaries for their time, and not just like working, not round the clock, but like just always, if they've got the space to do it, to
Right.
work. And when you're doing something that you're passionate about and you love, like I
Right.
actually love to work. I love to work, and I don't think
It's
there's
easy to
anything
get lost in the work.
right. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that per se. It's actually
Right.
great that you would love something that much that you can do that. At the same time, you can wake up one day and be like, holy shit, like I probably do need to take that pause. And so, for this upcoming spring break, I think I've settled it's probably going to be like 5 days is the goal. That we're going to figure out which 5 days within the time that the kids have off, that I'm going to push pause. I'm going to take a true just pause. I'm not going to say vacation because I don't want to take a vacation from our life. I don't think I need a vacation from our life. I love our life, but I'm going to take a pause. Um, and you were like, yeah, I'm totally down for that.
Girl, when something comes out your mouth, I'm just like, I'm down for it.
Right. Right.
I na-
Often.
name one thing. Name one thing I didn't. Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, yeah, no, I think that will be a useful exercise. Because again, last week we kind of talked about it at the micro level, right? Of on a day-to-day basis, finding some quiet time,
Yeah.
finding some solitude to just allow yourself to breathe, so to speak, right? But there is something to be said for taking an extended break from the things
Mhm.
and just allowing yourself, um and you used the cheesy ass phrase yesterday, what I can download. um
Why is that cheesy? Like you get
what are
downloads,
you, a
like divine.
computer?
No, but don't you get like divine downloads from God? Like that's what it is. It's a download.
I I get messages, I get inspiration. I don't get downloads. My
Okay.
modem's broke. Anyway, I I kid. I love that you get downloads, truly. But my point is, if all you're taking is some quiet time every couple days or just little pockets, right? You get little,
Yeah.
right? Because that's all the room that you've created, right? So to go back to my grocery analogy, if you just put down one arm of the groceries, then you can
You only have a
only
little.
you
Right.
only have one hand, right? But if you put all the groceries down, now all of a sudden you can hug your entire family at once.
Yeah.
Right? And that's metaphorically what we want to do. We want to hug our entire family all at one time,
Yeah, and
amongst other things.
and it's not, I think sometimes people can look at taking a pause or, a break or a string like this and, see it as, oh, well, yeah, because you need a break from uh your job or your business or your significant whatever you're taking a break from. And that could sometimes be true. But
Sure.
I think a couple of things, like one, like you were talking about, when I only have like a certain amount of time, like a short amount of time, like I feel like it can feel like that creates pressure in of itself of like,
Sure.
oh man, like I only have 20 minutes to myself to like really think about this. And I don't know about you, but like I feel like everybody has like their own their own kind of like timeline for like getting into a space of flow. And what I found to be true is it takes me a little bit to get into like a space of flow. And when I have like those little
Sure.
time frames, like if I don't have a bigger chunk of time, it's just kind of pointless because a small chunk of time doesn't really give me the ability to really get into flow. And so it's not really super helpful. But so one thing
Well,
that I'm looking forward to is like having this extended period where I can get into flow and there's not something necessarily waiting on me to take care of. Go ahead.
right. Well, and if I can offer some constructive criticism,
Sure.
one of the reasons it takes you so long to get into flow is because you so seldom have quiet time,
Right. So it's
right?
new.
So
It's
it
not familiar.
right, it's a muscle, right? Like
Right.
the if you were to spend, and this is why a lot of the people I follow are big on meditation, and when you suggest meditating to somebody, a lot of times they, well, I don't have 30 minutes to an hour to meditate every day. And it's like, well, you don't have to do that. That's if you want to be a monk on a mountain, great. But in reality, you got to start at like 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes.
Right.
You got to
Because
build
you're
that muscle. And then you'll find yourself like in a minute able to get into that state, right?
yeah, that makes
So,
sense. Yeah.
my encouragement to you, my lovely, beautiful wife, is on the backside of this upcoming week,
Right. Create a daily or a
create
frequent
a
practice
more
of it.
frequent practice
Sure.
because then it will be easier for you to get in the flow.
Sure. Well, and the other part of this too that I'm looking forward to is um just hopefully like refreshing my brain and like creativity and
Well, yeah, and
ideas and right. And so it's like uh it's why I don't know, I assume they still have this policy. I don't know, I've never looked it up, but I've always heard that like at Google, like their employees have like time for play, which I always hate I don't know what it is about the like play, but nevertheless, the point is they have time in their workday where they are expected to like just go play table tennis or go, on a walk with coworkers or themselves or whatever, because it allows your brain to be stimulated
right. Well,
just to
I think everybody's had that experience, right? Where
for sure.
you're elbow deep in a problem and you can't figure it out and whatnot, and you finally get to the point where you're like, and you walk away for a little bit, and like an hour later, you're in the shower or you're fixing some bacon,
Right.
and you're like, and then it comes to you because again, you've allowed that space.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so yeah, I'm excited for that. And I'm also excited, uh, you know, I'm definitely a work in progress as far as setting
Aren't we
work
all, sister?
those work life boundaries. Um, and I'm not ashamed to admit that like it's been a bit since I've like I don't know if I would say given my full attention, but I don't think it's like my full attention, but it's just been a bit since I have had the time to just fully immerse myself
Sure.
in with time with you, with time with the kids. And what I mean by that is like, there's I think can be challenging at times, like if you need to go back to work or if you have some sort of meeting or call or whatever, like at a later point in the day, that you take that pause out to like be with a loved one. And even if you're present with them, like somewhere in here, like you still know, like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
I've
for
got to go
sure.
back and I've got this meeting, or I've got to speak to these people, or I have this to do or that to do. So I think it's still, even if you are being intentional about giving your time there, I still think a little bit of it is kind of like robbed because you're still like the
Yeah.
thing, and I'm sure there's some practice and things that you could do so that like is happening less and less, but I'm not there yet. And so my goal also with these 5 days, and the 5 days is, it's to me it will end up being a combination of intense time with our kids and each other. And there's also going to be space for like them to go outside and play and do what they want to do. And, we can either do things together inside or we're doing our own thing. So, I mean, there's, to me, like it'll be a combination of things that are happening over spring break for our family, individual and together. But I'm just, like I told you on the walk, I'm looking forward to actually just literally waking up and not saying to our kids, okay, here's the schedule for today. Mom and dad are going to be working during this block of time, and then
Right.
we're going to hang out together as a family for these hours, and then we got to do a little bit of it. Like I'm looking forward to just like waking up and being like, okay guys, like what do you want to do today? Like where do
Yep.
you want to go? Do you just want to hang out at home? Like just what do you want to do? And honestly, like just be able to press pause. And of course, like as a responsible as a responsible business owner, I'm going to make sure everything's set up as it needs to be to run accordingly in the 5 days. But like I was telling some of my clients this morning, I said, if our community, as well as like you, fall apart in 5 days, that I am going to maybe be like a little less active than normal, then we have a problem. We
Right.
have a problem with how I'm running things. We have a problem with how you're like handling things in your life. Like that's a problem, right? And I think sometimes that's the story that we can tell ourselves, and hopefully someone listening can resonate with this, and maybe it give you permission to kind of think about this differently. I think if not careful, whether you work from home, whether you are an entrepreneur, a business owner, or whether you work in a typical you work for someone else at a company or whatever, I think that it's easy to tell ourselves that if we were to take a pause, like shit would fall apart,
Right.
or like I will lose my job, or the people that will be there won't know what to do, or we sometimes make ourselves a bigger player
Right. Well, we
in
want to
our
feel important.
life. Yeah. And the reality is that can be to our detriment, because we think if we are not doing the things, that all this negative stuff will happen. And honestly, some of the negative things that are occurring in our life or might come down the pipe could very well be as a partial result to us always having our nose to the grindstone and
Right.
not ever stepping out or
Right.
placing pause or doing whatever. And again, of course there is a way to ultimately construct your life where this is just how it always flows, right? But we're not all there yet, and we're certainly not there yet. But I feel like something like this is a step in the right direction as we work to build a life where it is just this constant state of flow, and focus is
Right.
where we need and want it to be all the time.
Well, and that's the punchline here, gang. Because as we wrap up, because the space that I've carved in my life for this podcast recording is coming to an end. But the reality is that I forgot what I was going to say.
It must not. I hate it when people are like, "Well, it must not have been that important." No,
No,
it didn't
I
mean it was not important. It just you lose the train of thought.
yeah, I
No,
got distracted.
by my beauty. I know.
Well, yeah, I
Um,
mean, gosh, dog.
I had just said that we can, lead ourselves to believe that stuff's gonna fall apart if we, you know, take a step away. You said it's because we think that we're that important. And I said we can just, nose to the grindstone everything and think that we're going to hurt ourselves if we were to take a pause. But often we're hurting ourselves by not taking that pause. That helped? None of that helped.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is
Is it the
that,
reality? Because I just want to make sure that the reality is.
there are times when we're
They
recording
know
this
they're picking up what I'm putting
that I
down.
just I just want to hit that leave button and be like, she can figure out the rest.
The
But
beard has
no,
left the building.
in spite of all the great knowledge that we drop on you guys through this 57 wonderful episodes that we've dropped, we don't have it all figured out. We've said this over and
No.
over again. And if you come to any one of these episodes going, these two have all the answers, well, you're going to be greatly disappointed. So I hope that you get some value out of us sharing this continued journey and the things that we are learning, the things that we are trying, the things that we try to pass on to you, because we don't have it all figured out. We're still trying to figure it out. I, for one, am looking forward to these 5 days next week of what we figure out through that time frame. So, um,
And I'm
that's
sure that
just,
on a future episode, we'll share how it went and maybe some lessons learned from it.
oh yeah, for sure. And if that's something you want to hear, DM me some word that I'm not going to remember saying, and we'll get
You
right
just
on it.
we'll spice it up. You choose the word that you want to DMS.
Yeah, I mean, because let's be honest, if I give you a specific word or you choose the word, either way, I'm going to be confused when that message comes across.
Right. Maybe
So
you could do jolly because then we at least could go back and be like, okay, that was the episode where we did.
that nope, that 100% won't work. But I like where your head's at, kid.
Hey, I try. I try. So, with that, thank you for listening today. As always, our goal is just to um, I think help you to feel less like you're living on an island by
Right?
yourself because you're not.
You're not
We
the only
want you
one.
to know that there are other flawed and imperfect people out there in the world, couples out there in the world who are just living life the best that they can, trying to do a little bit better today than they were yesterday, and they're not always getting it right. But sometimes they are, and those times they are matter and compound. And with that, that through our experiences that we share, there is, even at minimum, just gives you a little bit of light and hope in your life
Right.
to keep on keeping on. So with that, we will see you guys next week.